Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. Hope everybody's having an awesome start to your week, an end to your Sunday, however you're personally viewing uh, this particular day. Um, I don't expect a whole lot of people to join in on this for a number of reasons, one of which being this is the first time that I've done a live video in well over a week. Those of you who have followed the saga that has become uh, my health, you're aware of the fact that I have had a number of heart attacks over the past week, all last week, except for, all actually, Sunday makes a new week. So culminating at the beginning of last week and starting the week before, um, had several minor heart attacks that I ignored and dismissed as being something else, and ultimately ending up Saturday, not yesterday, but Saturday before. Hey, man, how's it going? I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. Um, but anyway, Saturday, not yesterday, but the previous Saturday, I had a major heart attack that night and was rushed to the hospital and treated, and seemed to be everything was, you know, being handled and under control. And me being me, actually started pressing Monday morning to be released. I'm, thinking, man, I need to get back. I got things to do, and still just in this mindset that I can will myself to be in a particular condition as far as my heart was concerned. And they were initially believing that the heart attack was a strain based on the incredibly high blood pressure, which was 230 something over one something when I got to the hospital with the chest pains. And so they weren't thinking anything else but getting the blood pressure under control. Once they got it to a certain point, they let me talk them into leaving. And they made me sign a waiver that basically said I was leaving against their down to the car where my wife was waiting. And in the wheelchair, I had another heart attack. This one was even more severe. And what I can tell you is there are definitely different responses with different people, because I've heard people who've had heart attacks say that the pain wasn't that bad. It was more discomfort and pressure and like squeezing. What I can tell you is it hurt like hell. And the pain was, incredibly intense. And anyway, they activated what they call a rapid response team, where, I don't know how many people shows up. They rolled me back into the room that I was originally in, and that's where they started the rapid response process. They were prepping me for surgery because at that point they knew something else was going on because my pressure wasn't that high. And when they went in, they found a blockage in my main artery. It was a 90% blockage. The cardiologist said that if I would have left the hospital, I probably would have died. Fortunately, and I'm grateful, first of all, to have my life, to have a second chance with my wife and my family, and to continue my work. Secondly, I am grateful to everybody who sent love, who put up prayers, who sent love, light, positive energy, who spoke kind words. I read as many as I could. And I want to say that I am thankful. I appreciate it. And I also paid attention to the advice. And yes, I am going to be scaling back a lot of what I do on a long-term basis. I'm going to outsource a lot of what I do. One thing that someone shared with me personally, they spoke with me personally, and they said that they admired my vision and what I was working on, and it was time for me to replicate. And what they were saying, what they were meaning by that is, I can't do it all. And trying to do it all is really taking a lot out of me. And I need to learn how to train and trust. And so that's something that I'm going to be working on tremendously over the next several months, is setting up ways that I can train people who want to take on some of this and have an impact in the world. I've already previously to the heart attacks made some connections in places like Chicago, Charlotte, Atlanta, and a few other places in Florida. And I'm going to be working with these people to provide them with everything that I can to help them do what they can do in their areas. I'm also going to be building a team, business-wise and for community work, that's going to focus on the thing that we are really stressing at the Odyssey Project: research and development, community involvement, program development. And we are going to, as a team, take this thing to the next level. I'm going to have to trust people who have the same passion. And I'm going to have to be willing to trust them with my passion and my work. I can't take it any higher than I've taken it by myself. I'm stretching myself and pushing myself in ways that is proving unhealthy. Don't get me wrong. This isn't all stress and strain. This is me not taking care of myself, not eating right, not spending enough time in the gym, not making my health a priority. And that stopped on Monday when I was able to survive that final heart attack. My health is now at the top of the priority list. And so there will be some changes. I'm going to keep dropping knowledge on you guys. I'm going to keep sharing positive and free content on both sides of the spectrum, whether it's about business and personal development or whether it's about the Black community and empowerment. I'm going to continue to produce that content because I believe that content has purpose. But there are some things that I'm doing on the second and third and fourth levels that I'm going to have to build a team and trust that other people will step in and do it. And on that note, I'm going to move into what I'm going to talk about tonight. I'm not going to be here that long. There's definitely, obviously, a need for support. So I'm going to share a couple of times the way that you can support the work we do at the Odyssey Project. Those who have been around and followed me for years, you know what I do. It's no secret. You know my passion, you know my project, you know the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours I've put in scientific research in my area of expertise, which is sociology and psychology, and the impact of trauma on the behavior of the African-American community, unhealed trauma, and how that's played out over decades. I've been a champion of the understanding of generational trauma. I've partnered work with some unbelievable people like Dr. Jard DeGroote, Dr. Howard Stevenson, Dr. Naeem Agbar, Dr. Joseph Fulilove, and a number of others that have been prominent in producing empirical data that identifies the things we face. I am the theorist behind the cognitive dominative bias theory, which I believe has a massive impact on how we view the world and how it impacts us. I've produced my dissertation on that. And so I'm steady looking in now into a more in-depth understanding in view of how epigenetics play a role beyond epigenetic tagging and the control and manipulation of gene expression, because it goes definitely goes deeper than that. If you understand adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, you understand that there's an epigenetic play in that. and it goes extremely deeper than just the superficial understanding about epigenetics. And so I'm excited about that. Again, for those who can support, I would like for you guys to support. Another thing that I would love to see us get behind is the work that we're going to be doing in the area of mental health. I have endeavored to create a national network of mental health support, primarily for young African American males, because I'm seeing a high level of psychotic breaks, a high level of suicidal ideation, as well as actual suicide attempts and suicides. That is cause for concern. We're going to work on that. We're going to create these channels. We have been asking and connecting and conversing with mental health experts, whether it be therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists. The work is immense. The challenges are immense, but we can't sit around wishing and hoping our way out of this thing. We have to be aggressively and proactively addressing it. And that's my goal. Again, because of where I'm at right now with my health issues and, the recent heart attacks, I am going to require a lot of help from professionals and people who have developed and established a level of expertise in this area. To consult, to work, and to participate in the research. I look for a lot of you grad students who want to, cut your teeth and get serious about work. If you want to join in, I would love to have you. And we can talk more about that, but we definitely could use your support. I would love to have sponsors, Black business owners who are willing to sponsor individuals to at least get a year worth of intervention, whether it's counseling, whether it's therapy, and that they are different. And, people don't know that, therapeutic processes are more about healing. Counseling is more about awareness and understanding and dealing with behavioral issues. But anyway, definitely, I would love that. Now on to what I'm here to talk to you guys about. Again, I'm not going to be here long, but I've seen this like several times. So now I'm saying, okay, I know I have the questions because I always have questions. The first thing that I have when I'm faced with something are the questions that come up. We don't ask enough questions and we don't ask the right questions. We tend to allow someone to give us answers to questions we've never asked. And so we are literally being told what to think, how to perceive. And you can see it in the fear and the panic surrounding the coronavirus, not the observation of facts and understanding of how things work. And that has been another problem that we've unfortunately had to deal with, is that we don't understand how most of the things that drive this world work. And so we tend to deal with things based on how we feel and instead of what we understand. And so I decided to just drop in because I had questions. Now, in a quote unquote pandemic, the COVID-19 coronavirus, there is Bill Gates, who recently stepped down from two very prominent board positions, one at the company he co-founded, Microsoft, and with Berkshire Hathaway, which is primarily associated with Warren Buffett. And he cites the need to be more focused on his philanthropic passions and endeavors. Thank you, Black Beauty. Thank you very, very, very much. But what has really caught my attention about Bill Gates is the fact that he has said on more than one occasion that could be as high as 10 million deaths associated with the COVID COVID-19 coronavirus in Africa. What makes this interesting is, as of right now, he's making this prediction while Africa is the most unimpacted continent on the planet as it is concerned with dealing with COVID-19. And if it's unimpacted, how is it that it's at the greatest threat? Why is his focus on not on ground zero, which is China, where the vast majority of the deaths and the cases exist, globally speaking, but on the continent where the fewest cases exist? Now, to understand this, you have to understand the history of Bill Gates outside of being a vicarious target through which many people sit up and get awed and enamored by his wealth and not understand how he thinks. And we tend to look at people in here. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see you guys dropping in. Thanks for all the love. I'm slowly recovering. It's a slow process, but I am recovering. Kinks and Curls, Black Beauty, James B, all of you guys, thank you. Look, Bill Gates' father, William Gates, was a staunch supporter of eugenics. He was a major financier. I don't know who Sally Robbins is, but a shout out to Sally Robbins. Thank you, James B, for dropping in, man. Appreciate it. You know, look, with William Gates, eugenics was big. I'm not going to get into a deep definition of what eugenics is, but eugenics is about the purity of race on every level. And there's a belief of a hierarchy in genetic racial existence. And it has led to the sterilization of people. It has led to a consistent effort to, I am definitely sorry to hear about you. Normally, I don't do a lot of engagement with the chat. I'm horrible at it. But my recent experience has really sort of, really got me aware of what's going on. James, I'm definitely sorry about the illness of your girlfriend, man. I'm lifting her up. I don't know what your faith is, but whatever your faith is, I'm lifting her up based off my faith and my relationship with God. And I am hoping for the best. My email is all over the place. Email me and let me know how she's doing, if there's anything that I can do. And I'll touch on that some more. But thank you, man, for stopping by, because I know that it can be difficult. But eugenics has pushed. By the way, William Gates was a very, very close friend and supporter of Margaret Sanger. If you know who Margaret Sanger is, nothing else need to be said if not research her. I'm not going to get off into that because I want to make my point as succinct as possible because, I don't want to overdo it. This is my first live on YouTube. It's my second live, period. I did a live earlier today on Facebook. This is my second live I've done since the incident. So, in the process of this eugenic things, population control consistently pops up. Margaret Sanger and William Gates, Bill Gates' father, were both consulted in the early 1970s, we'll say 1971, 72, 73, by David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, and a number of others who were participating in what is now recognized as NSSM 200 and NSSM 2000, which was global population control. There has been a staunch concern, especially amongst the wealthy, that the global population is out of control. And that it has to be controlled. It has been a constant effort of humanity at a certain level to interfere with the natural moving of things as it pertains to the growth in the population um, of Earth, and especially as it pertains to Blacks and people of color. Um, and so when he talks about there specifically being 10 million deaths in a place where the virus has had the least impact, it begs to question what is actually about to happen and how much of it will really actually be as a result of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Now, the COVID-19 coronavirus is interesting in and of itself. I've been doing some research, still have a lot more to do before I really want to speak on this in any depth. But what I do want to say is that based off of what I've been able to find, the basis of the coronavirus um, is that it is primarily found in animals, as with all of its family members that prior to this particular strain, primarily in animals and rarely transmitted to humans. But a scientist out of Johns Hopkins and someone else from the US, both associated with the US, actually resurrected a deadly version of the virus that killed, if I'm not mistaken, close to 100 million people, a lot of which were in Alaska and in further up the northern hemisphere. And when they actually exhumed some of the bodies of the people who died from this over 100 some years ago, and literally resurrected the virus. The problem was, due to the temperatures and the cold, they weren't able to resurrect the virus in a manner that it was contagious. It was no longer an infectious virus, but it still maintains some of its properties and principles from a genetic perspective. And so what they did is they merged, I believe, 3 genes from the HIV virus with it, making it once again a infectious virus. And some other things that's going on. So there's a lot of reasons, if you do your research, to believe that this virus is in some way genetically engineered with a specific purpose in mind. And I definitely believe that to the fullest. And so there are a lot of different questions. Some people believe that it's China taking a shot at the US. I personally believe it's the US in its trade war with China, because China is going to be the most negatively impacted by the virus because, number one, it's ground zero, and there's a great fear of what comes out of China. So a lot of shipping and manufacturing, China is the global manufacturing hub. How many years in our lives have we been growing up seeing stuff tagged made in China? It is a global manufacturing hub. It's a global export hub that could be very seriously impacted by this pandemic. And so this could easily be a part of that. I also believe that it is going to be used as a shield for some very, very dark stuff that they plan on doing in Africa. We have been led to believe, because of how we live in the US, that Blacks are a minority, when the truth are we have the largest population in the world, and that people of color, period, dominate the world. Whites as a race make up about 15% of the total global population. And the ability to manipulate and control can be interrupted solely by numbers. The more numbers, the harder it is to control. And we're moving further into the information age, the data-driven age, where things are more difficult to conceal. And so the way that they've been able to manipulate us in the past is no longer um, a given. There are people awakening every day. There are people who are actually searching and researching. And you have to be willing to research without bias. A lot of people suffer from bias confirmation, where they are literally researching to prove themselves right. And if you want to do that, you can do that all day long, especially in a world now where there's this open avenue to information called the internet. And on the internet, there is a school of thought, philosophy, and concepts that cover the entire spectrum of thinking. So if you think that the earth is flat, there's plenty of information out there that'll sit up. If that's what you want to prove, it'll give it to you. But that's not true scientific research. The true scientific research says that I have to look at all possible outcomes and give them equal consideration with all facts being considered. And so one must be willing to completely examine the facts. And so when you look at it from that perspective, there's a lot going on and a lot of things that we really and truly have to be aware of. I'm not, again, going to get into them at all right now. What I want to just simply do is make you aware of the fact that there's something going on and we need to be aware of it and we need to take a position on it. But obviously, Africa is going to be targeted. And the ahead of time prediction, the fact that this man has stepped down from two very prominent positions at Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway speak volume. There's another major CEO, I can't think of where, who stepped down on yesterday. And I expect some other things to take place that's going to kind of rattle things. One thing that I want to advise everybody to do is to not be driven by fear. The fear mongering is a part of the process. They want you to panic. The global financial market is being manipulated by fear mongering, by getting people to panic. You know, why in the hell are people buying up toilet tissue? I would actually be focusing, understanding how the disease operates and who is vulnerable. I would be focusing on buying up things that build up the immune system, because it's those with weak immune systems who are most vulnerable to this. I mean, stack up on your vitamin C, other plants that will build your immune system. And you have to really, truly just start to research and understand. You have everything you need as a people to survive this. I believe anybody can be vulnerable, but that's obviously based on the numbers, which are statistically significant. It's obviously not built for Blacks because it's not hitting us as heavy. There are some people who have been diagnosed with it, some who are sick. I don't know how many have died. I know the number is extremely small, relatively speaking, but it doesn't mean that we're immune. It just means that it's probably not genetically geared towards us. I'm assuming it's genetically geared towards Asians. Also, what's important to understand is in Wuhan, China, where the breakout initiated, is also the epicenter of the 5G technology that is going to spread across the world. The first large 5G network was launched in Wuhan, and it just coincidentally aligns with the start of the virus. Now, those, if you really truly study viruses do respond to frequency. And there's a very distinct and high energetic impulse frequency in 5G, which can easily have taken a dormant, pre-placed virus and initiated or ignited it. That's something that you have to really sit up and look at. And that's one part of it, is that you have that going on and you have to be aware of the 5G effect. Also something to be aware of, because now 5G is literally being thrown up around the US at a very rapid pace. You got to ask yourself, how will the 5G um, uh, networks impact us from a health perspective? All the research that I've been able to gather doesn't speak well of the total outcome. And so we are going to have to be cognizant of that. We need to have think tanks in place that are developing strategies of how we respond to these type of machinations that are geared towards really reducing the population. I mean, there are so many things at play that could be controlled, from cancer to HIV to the flu, to a number of different things that kill thousands and thousands and thousands upon people, millions annually, that could be controlled, from the manipulation of the food products that we eat, from the contributions and manipulations of big pharma. There are so many different things that if you understand how things work, you know that health is illnesses are being created for the purpose of population control and profit. For every illness, there is a cure. Most of the cures can be obtained from an epigenetic upstep. And what do I mean by that? Epigenetics deals with environment. It deals with genetic predisposition, but also environmental genetic manipulation. In other words, ACEs, for instance, adverse childhood experiences, is a prime example. Individuals who have at least 4 adverse child experiences over the course of their childhood are more likely to have ischemic heart disease, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, things that we normally just solely attribute to nutrition and genetics, but also environment. Epigenetic environment has, I mean, 4 ACEs can also increase the suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, and so many other things, including depression, and on down the line. It makes you more susceptible. It puts you in a situation. It is a direct influencer of the deterioration of health, or where most people aren't looking, and where I want to spend a lot of time digging, is in the healing of individuals. It is my belief, based off of the information that I've been able to study on epigenetics, that when you create the proper environment, the proper thought, the proper meditate, exactly, kinks and curls, meditating, positive thought. Your thoughts have physicality. That's something I teach my clients all the time. Your thoughts have physicality. And so you literally shift from negative environment, negative energy, negative frequency. You go on hertz from anything on the low frequency end of 450 and down. You try to get to 500 hertz and up, experiencing true, authentic, genuine love, not infatuation, not fantasy, but true engagement in love, 500 hertz. Gratitude, 550, 600 hertz. The ability to expand one's knowledge and ideas, personal growth, and revelation, actually 700 hertz. The more you learn new every day increases your frequency, because it increases the possibilities, and it enhances hope. And the presence of hope is extremely powerful when it comes to healing. And so we have to really, truly, hey, Regina, awesome. And so we have to really, truly understand the power of epigenetics. So in essence, the interference with the ability to personally heal has been ongoing for decades. We're battling some very powerful forces. When you come to big pharma is a $500 billion a year industry. And then there are all these different segments there. Think just in psychotropic drugs that are prescribed to school-age children for things like ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, um, depression, and a number of other things. These psychotropic drugs alone, administered to school-age children, is a $75 billion a year industry, and is pushed by the public education system. It is backed by shoddy uh, uh, data in the field of psychology, and a bunch of, you know, shoddy ways of reaching diagnosis that put these kids in harm's way. It is definitely a big issue. It is a holocaust in its own. Um, and so we have to be very, very aware of that. And there's so much more that we don't know and understand. And that's why I've been advocating and pushing for us to develop think tanks, minds who have immersed themselves in the understanding, in gaining an understanding of how things work on every level. It is absolutely imperative that we gain footing in this, because that's where we build programs, we build strategies, we set agendas, and we begin to operate as a unit based off of what we understand instead of reacting to how we feel. That has not gotten us anywhere, and that's what they want us to do. They want us to act based on feelings rather than information, rather than strategies, rather than agendas. And that's going to be our responsibility to do the opposite and actually stand up and take action that is prevalent in the way of enhancing our chances and our opportunities to empower ourselves. It's up to us to make our presence felt. And so I just wanted to kind of stop in long enough to sit down and share with you guys what I know about Bill Gates, his father, William Gates, Margaret Sanger, NSSM 200, NSSM 2000. Look those things up, and you will see that there's been an ongoing process of controlling the population for more than a century. And it kicked into overdrive right around the same time that the Trilateral Commission was being formed in 1971-72 by Zbigniew Brzezinski. They were also looking at ways to control the population on a global scale. And the 7 countries that were targeted most were all countries with large Black populations. We know for a fact that many Blacks during that time, up through the 30s, 40s, and 50s, were forcibly and many times without knowledge rendered sterile. There are records of it. There are actually laws that just recently fell off the books or were taken off the books without fanfare and without a lot of press paying attention to it. A lot of states finally took those sterilization laws off the books, even though most of them weren't practicing it, actively practicing it. They were still on the books and they were taken off. All of this stuff is researchable. All this stuff can be verified. We owe it to ourselves to be aware of the machinations and the schemes and the mechanisms and components of the system that has consistently and effectively held us at bay and oppressed us and sought to destroy us. It's amazing who we are just by the representation and definition of our existence. A weaker people would have been annihilated by now. A weaker people would have been completely destroyed. But yet we stand here and we represent what can happen just by sheer resilience. Now, imagine what would happen if we brought our minds together. Imagine what would happen if we decided to come together and unite and develop true strategies and agendas based off of empirical data that can be studied, can be measured, can be used to create calculated and proactive responses to what we're going through. And that is what we have to look at. There's a reason why Bill Gates is talking about 10 million deaths in a country that has been the least, I mean, on a continent that has been the least impacted by the virus. There are other things at work. And what we must do is bring things to the forefront. What we must do is be willing to speak truth to power. What we must do is not sit idle and allow things to happen. What we must do is put our and unite our resources, put our resources together, and to make a stand. We have reached a time where it's getting extremely dangerous to be Black. And it's going to get increasingly worse until we develop the power to resist, to say that there's a consequence to moving against us. We cannot appeal to the moral fiber or the moral character of a group of people who do not possess such. It's going to be our responsibility to rise up and establish a consequence of significance for harming and disturbing Black peace, Black lives, Black health, Black finance. And it's got to be done starting now. And so I'm going to get off of here. I didn't actually mean to go this long, but I did want to give some insight into this entire Bill Gates thing. I wanted to spend some time loving on you guys and thanking you guys for praying for me while I went through my ordeal. I'm still on the mend. I'm going to take my time and heal. I'm going to change some things as far as my workload. I'm going to make my health a priority. And we're going to work from that. I'm going to replicate myself. I'm going to do a lot more team building instead of taking on everything by myself. I'm going to listen to my wife more as she tells me to relax and rest. But I'm not going to lay down. I'm not built like that. I'm going to speak truth to power. I'm going to call and challenge my people. I'm going to make every bit of my life matter. And I'm challenging you to do the same thing. I'm going to enter that information to support the work we are doing. Again, I am currently working on a couple of research projects. One is the influence of epigenetics on adverse childhood experiences, the influence of epigenetics on the potential to self-heal, the influence of epigenetics on multi-generational transmission of trauma and the vulnerability to trauma. That's a work in progress. We're also doing Black Men Lead. I've been meeting and talking with people about setting up centers in different cities where these people operate and training them to carry out Black Men Lead as a rite of passage. Also working with young Black females with restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters, and so much more. And then there is another thing that I'm extremely passionate about, and that's dealing with mental health in the Black community. We definitely have a lot going on in that area, and because of the stigmatism associated with it, it is underreported and underaddressed, and we're losing babies because of it. Right now, children age 5 to 11, Black children are leading in suicides in that age group. For the first time in history, we are actually leading in an age group in suicide. Now, that definitely changes as we age, but we all starting to see some growth in suicides in young Black teenage adolescent males. And we need to address that. We need to address the psychopathy of it and so much more. I'm going to get on that, and I'm going to share that with you, but we're building that out. We're asking businesses to sponsor individuals for a year worth of treatment. And we're asking individuals to support in whatever way you can. But at the end of the day, we've got to be aware of the way that we are being negatively impacted by the things that are happening. And we need to be specifically focused on the ways that we can positively impact our environment. The time is up for excuses. The time is up for pointing fingers. It's going to be up to us. The enemy is going to be the enemy, and that's absolutely nothing we can do about that. The enemy is going to be the enemy. Our job is to establish ourselves as a force to be reckoned with. And despite everything that's been thrown at us, we have the capacity to become. And what we become is going to be up to us on an individual level and on a level as a people. And so my challenge is always going to be standing up and moving forward as a unit, as a people, and supporting the work of the people who have boots on the ground and their minds engaged in solutions. And so on that note, I'm going to leave. I'm going to get off. I'm going to uh, relax and rest. It's been a long day in a different way. Again, I haven't gotten back to work in any real true capacity. I've recorded a few videos that I shared with you. I've actually pulled some old ones out of the archive to share with you. But this is my first live stream since the series of heart attacks. And I'm going to the doctor tomorrow to my primary care physician and my cardiologist, and we are going to determine if I can get back to work on a, at least at a reduced capacity and work my way up. So I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping that I get a chance to get back out there, and get some things done, but it'll definitely not be at full capacity. I'm going to literally listen this time, and I'm going to work myself back to a level where I'm primed to be everything I need to be, because there's so much left for me to give this world, to give my people, to give my family. And it's going to be up to me that I remain healthy enough to do that. And so that's where I'm at right now. On that note, I'm going to get off of here again. I love you. I appreciate you, every last one of you. Thank you. I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.